Good morning for Telesur. I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas. We go to Gaza now. At least 9 Palestinians, including a pregnant woman and 3 children, died following an Israeli attack in central Gaza. It comes as the temporary ceasefire between Hamas and Israel expired. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the attack after alleging that 3 rockets were launched from the Gaza Strip into Israel. Those attacks did not cause injuries. More than 2,000 Palestinians, the majority of them civilians, have died since the original start of the offensive on July 8th. On Tuesday, the convoy of humanitarian aid from Venezuela arrived in Rafah at the Egyptian border with the Gaza Strip. The delivery of 12 tons of products was coordinated between the Egyptian and Venezuelan governments. Ecuador is also collecting products to send to Gaza. Ecuadorians have so far collected nearly 10 tons of humanitarian aid. Police officers shot and killed another young African-American man brandishing a knife near St. Louis, Missouri Tuesday afternoon. According to official reports, the man was 3 to 4 feet away from the officer when shot. The man was later identified as Kajame Powell. St. Louis Police Chief Sam Dotson says the suspect acted erratically and was yelling at the officer, encouraging the cop to go ahead and shoot him. Some local media reports indicate the suspect may have had mental health problems. The shooting took place just 4 miles outside of Ferguson, Missouri, where residents have taken to the streets over the past week demanding justice for the police killing of unarmed teenager Michael Brown. A grand jury will begin a hearing Wednesday investigating that shooting. Wednesday, the United Nations Agency for Refugees will launch a large-scale operation in northern Iraq. It's an attempt to help the estimated 500,000 people displaced by fighting between Iraqi forces and the Islamic State group, formerly known as ISIS. The UNHCR will send tents as well as food and medical supplies to the Kurdish capital of Erbil. Spokesman Adrian Edwards says the organization will launch one of its largest aid efforts ever. Islamic State forces have captured large parts of northern Iraq and forced many people to flee their homes. The fighting continues across many parts of Iraq as well as Syria. Over 1 million Iraqis have been displaced in 2014, with more than 500,000 from fighting in the Anbar region. Another 600,000 have been displaced around Mosul and Sinjar in northern Iraq, where the UN operation will be focused. An expanded Red Cross delegation arrived in the Russian border town of Rostov on Wednesday to further inspect the Russian humanitarian aid trucks as they make their way to Ukraine. Moscow expects that the delivery of its humanitarian aid will resume, but is waiting for Kiev's security guarantees, which will likely come after the Red Cross inspection. Russian officials say they expect that no one will hinder further attempts to resume the delivery of the aid. Meanwhile, the fighting between the Ukrainian army and eastern rebels has intensified, leading to a growing humanitarian crisis. Some reports indicate that Kiev forces may have also used chemical weapons in the region. Tens of thousands of protesters in Pakistan have arrived in Islamabad in an attempt to force the Prime Minister to resign. The protests were led by former international cricket star turned politician Imran Khan and Islamic cleric Muhammad Tahrir Al-Kurdi. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif mobilized the military in an attempt to secure the Pakistani capital as the waves of protesters arrived in the city. Military officials say they will not intervene. The March on Islamabad comes after a similar sit-in claiming that last year's elections were fraudulent. Former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva called on citizens to re-elect President Dilma Rousseff during the first TV ads of the presidential campaign. In the 12-minute spot, Lula also urges citizens to exercise their right to vote for Rousseff without hesitation and assured them they will not regret it, adding that Rousseff's second term will be better than the first. During her first message, Rousseff's Brazilian Workers' Party also paid tribute to the late presidential candidate Eduardo Campos, who died in a plane crash last week. Marina Silva has taken Campos' spot as presidential candidate for the Socialist Party. A new bill to bring restructured debt under Argentinian law will be sent to Congress today after President Cristina Fernandez introduced the measure Tuesday. According to the president, the bill will remove the Bank of New York Mellon as the trustee agent and designate as its replacement Nación Bank.
¿Por qué es muy importante esta figura que hemos creado del fideicomiso? Porque cuando uno pone algo en una cuenta corriente común.
Why is this trusteeship important? When someone puts money in a normal checking account, it can remove it, move it, and use it for other means. When there is a trusteeship with abilities determined by law, the only application that can be given to those resources in those funds are those established by the law of those who approve the trusteeship, for which there is absolute assurance that it gives the holders assurance that the deposits which are made punctually in that account from Argentina's central bank, no one, not even a president, no one can touch the funds because they belong to our creditors.
Nadie, ningún presidente ni nadie podrá tocarlos.
At a ceremony at the Peruvian presidential palace, President Ollanta Humala unveiled a map with newly established boundaries created during a bilateral working group. The International Court of Justice at The Hague granted Peru some 50,000 square kilometers of additional territorial waters, 20,000 of which were previously considered Chilean and 30,000 in international waters. The ruling also allows Chile to maintain rich fishing grounds in the disputing area. Bolivia begins its installation of Homegas connections in homes all across the country this week. For what this could mean for Bolivians, here's our correspondent David Daughtry.
Bolivia's state-run petrol enterprise, YPFB, is installing home gas connections in homes across the country. Before the arrival of President Evo Morales and his subsequent nationalization of the country's large natural gas reserves in 2006, only 28,000 users in the country had in-house natural gas connections, the majority of which was only destined for larger enterprises.
Now, 8 years into this process, we have expanded service to reach 330,000 users, which is 11 times more than the previous number of users.
The government of President Evo Morales has made a top priority out of opening up direct access to the country's nationalized natural resources to all segments of the Bolivian population.
With the nationalization, Bolivians can really see how the country's hydrocarbons are now the property of the people. They see this in the very rates that are now charged for natural gas access.
YPFB installs the gas lines, meters, and tubes that run directly to home kitchens in order for families to access natural gas for heating and cooking in their homes at much lower rates than those charged for the multiple small tanks used by families on a monthly basis.
Each tank goes for between 22.50 and 25 bolivianos. Now with our gas line, they're saying it will be as low as 18 bolivianos a month. It's very cheap, it's going to be really convenient.
In the administrative capital of La Paz, more than 14,000 gas lines were installed in 2013 alone.
In addition to installing the natural gas connections in neighborhoods across La Paz, the government is also having them installed in cities across Bolivia. Reporting from La Paz, this is David Daughtry with Telesur.
And thanks to David. Multiple landslides following torrential rains killed at least 27 people in Japan Wednesday, with at least 10 still missing. Those stats are according to government officials. Several children were among those killed in Hiroshima, including a 2-year-old boy. The landslides also buried dozens of houses. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sent troops to Hiroshima in the area of the landslides to assist in rescue efforts. The area is expecting more heavy rains, which could trigger even more landslides. According to the World Health Organization, over 2,200 cases of Ebola have been reported in Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria and Liberia. Those infections have led to over 1,200 deaths. United Nations Ebola Coordinator Dr. David Nabarro says he will travel to West Africa this week to help coordinate health and emergency services.
Tomorrow night, I fly directly to West Africa. I will start a program in West Africa together with some of our colleagues working with governments and with others to establish what are the best ways in which our whole United Nations system can support people, communities and governments affected by Ebola virus.
A recent study from an international organization suggests that the elephant population in Africa continues to decline, with more elephants now killed yearly than are born. In the past 3 years, poachers killed at least 100,000 elephants, according to the new peer-reviewed study in the latest issue of Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. During 2011 alone, 1 of every 12 African elephants was killed by a poacher. The elephant population in some nations has declined by 64% since the year 2000. The study also shows that Africa lost an average of 7% of its elephants per year between 2010 and 2013. The exact number of elephants in the wild is unknown, but the World Wildlife Fund puts it at around 500,000. Some estimate the number could be below 400,000. Barcelona striker Luis Suarez says he has received professional help following personal outbursts of violence on the field in the past. During his official presentation with Barcelona, Suarez said that the fans shouldn't worry because it won't happen again. Suarez was banned 4 months from any football activity except friendly matches. The punishment came after Suarez bit an Italian player during Uruguay's game with Italy at the World Cup. The Uruguayan striker says that he has already accepted FIFA's suspension and that he is being treated by professionals to address his violent character. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Hope you have a great day.